Welcome. Hello. It's time for Block Talk. We're on Bitcoin block 429031. It's just over 9,000 blocks since the halving. Yeah, we're coming up on another difficulty change. Going pretty good here. Let's take a look at the mempool. Oh man, we got some dips in transactions per second. China, what are you doing here? You're not putting any transactions in your block. Come on, pull your weight, guys. The Fury, you guys are doing all right. Keep it up. So we got some sponsors. Syscoin. Now, many people are probably familiar with OpenBazaar, but with that, you have to host your own server and make sure it's up 100% of the time. It's kind of a different way of approaching it, but Syscoin, their solution is basically your store is written onto the blockchain. So once you pay to have your item listed on the chain, it is there for, I think, as long as you pay the listing to be there. So you don't have to worry about uptime. There's kind of immutability in the fact that your item can't be taken down because your node can't be taken down. So it's a really interesting way they kind of approach the situation. And yeah, their wallet is getting sexier every time I look at it. So here we have the 2.0 wallet. And they'll have some cool releases later on, but check it out. They got a Windows Mac. You can compile your own from GitHub. Our other sponsor is Bittrex. So Bittrex is a cryptocurrency exchange. They specialize in altcoins, but they also have a USD market with Tether. They do some cool things like ICOs. So right now they have a sponsored one by BlockSafe. So I interviewed these guys on Tuesday. It's kind of like IoT combined with gun technology. Yeah, really interesting stuff. I don't know why they called it BlockSafe though. If they were smart, they would have called it Glockit, after the whole Slockit thing, because it's very similar, except they're doing it on the Lisk chain. So doing it in Java. All right. So what else we got here? Oh yeah, if you guys have any questions during the show, feel free to ask.
I'll let you know.
And yeah, that's our live audience there. We got guys at Decontrol. We got the awesome posse. How's it going, guys?
Raise your hand if you don't live in Vancouver. Him too. You don't live here. All right.
Oh, we got a decent crowd. Nice. So that would be Andrew Wagner.
Hey, guys. Yeah, we're going to talk about how Synereo works. We're still waiting for their chief scientist to show up, so we'll just do like a brief recap.
Yeah, take it away. Let's hear how Synereo runs.
Synereo's been in development for a while. The concept was developed a couple years ago, and they've been working on it technically. The idea is decentralized social media. Good analogies are Facebook or Twitter. The idea being you just send information to each other, social media. For countries where they have problems like censorship in times of social upheaval, like during the Arab Spring, they just shut down Twitter. Things like that can be problematic. So Synereo presents unique options. They call it the attention economy. Interesting concept. The concept being your attention span is limited, and therefore your attention is a finite commodity. So amps are redeemable for it. They're backed by it. Put an ad on their network, analogous to a sponsored ad on Facebook. But the amps go to the viewer, not to a middleman like Facebook, because the idea here is that you are exchanging them for people's attention, which is finite. Concept, like theoretically, if you thought there would be more need for Facebook ads next month, you could buy a bunch of amps or whatever analog, and you could invest and speculate that way. It's a crazy concept. I don't know. Have everyone here Synereo here? All right. How much of that was crazy and like hard to understand? Like, you get the concept. It's like a decentralized social media channel. I don't know what else to say. I think it's a pretty simple concept. And I've been waiting for it, but they started trying to do it on Ethereum at first, and Greg found that it was difficult for the number of transactions they issue, social layer. So they started developing called RChain, which I don't fully understand yet. But they've been working on that, building their own platform on which to place this social layer and attention economy. And theoretically, you could put all kinds of stuff on that. I think in the future, their plan is to have a market of dApps things, and that'd be interesting to see. But I think that's still a bit away. The development's pretty hard for that kind of thing.
So, Andrew, I think there was a really good example today why this is important. The Prime Minister of Norway put a post on Facebook that was had an iconic photo of the napalm girl from the Vietnam War, and Facebook censored it. So if the Prime Minister of Norway can't even have his post permanently etched onto Facebook, then there's got to be something wrong with the platform. Yeah. So could you, I guess,
like that.
Yeah, could you maybe talk a little more about how like the attention economy, how that works in practice? I guess because like, how do you know what is valid attention? Like, do we know this is a person?
That's a great question, because not everyone's attention is equal, at least economically speaking. From the perspective of the network, the value of your attention is your ability to get other people's attention, because that's why you're buying a Synereo ad. That's why someone buys a Facebook ad. You're trying to reach the critical users who have lots of followers and stuff like that. So if you have more reach and followers, then the network will give you more amps than other people who view a sponsored story or ad. So again, the majority of all of the funds from your sponsored story go to the watchers, but people who are going to be more beneficial to be watching it from your perspective, people who talk a lot will get more amps. Like right now, loved your product. He has to get lots of amps, because otherwise everyone try to give him ads, right? So they have there's tokenization of what human attention is worth, and you're buying it when you place an ad, and that's its backing. And it's not too crazy. A lot of, I think, tokens are doing now, service-backed tokens. They let you do something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. But so there's no real way, I guess, to differentiate between someone leaving their browser open or like a bot that's consuming attention or an actual person.
Well, no, because you have to actually interact with this thing. You cannot do nothing. They have a thing analogous to your Facebook feed in the social media layer. Only so many things that can show up. You can't, I guess you could go and click, I guess you could theoretically go all over the Synereo network and press like on every single thing that exists to try to collect a small amp reward for each one. But this would diminish the value of your attention upon doing so, and you would get decreasing rewards, diminishing returns, the more you did that. And there's a limit to how many things are going to show up in your Facebook feed. If you did click like and share on every single thing, get the amp for a concern, it tends to regulate itself out.
Yeah, sorry, I cut out there for a second. I got most of that, but so this sounds kind of similar to, I guess, how Steemit works right now, like where you upvote something, and then if other people upvote it after you, you get curation rewards. So it's like, oh, I found this cool thing before anyone else, so you get a little bit of the block reward. Is that kind of how this works in practice? Like, is there this subjective
similarities there?
Okay.
There are lots of similarities there in that they're doing a social networking kind of thing. Although Steam's economy is more complex in that they have like 3 tokens, but there's still the idea there that if you think more people are going to want the ability to reach Steemit users next month. Buying Steem might be a good idea. And then there's that analog, but its function is different. Steemit's more like Reddit, like Facebook or Twitter, in how it works, and having a news feed that you scroll through and access. Yeah, so I don't see it as like a direct competition kind of thing.
Yeah,
And
no.
It's
Like,
also little more what they're trying to do. Steemit's going very gradually. Like it is using cryptocurrency, but we access a website which is on a central server to do everything on Steemit. So that it's trying to do more decentralized things first. So it's been taking them longer, like a couple years already, right? There's some advantages like Steemit has. They're going to go gradually and well, theoretically, they're going to decentralize further and further as it goes along.
Yeah, right now it is rather centralized, and it's highly inflationary.
I don't know how far this reaches. This is Juan. He's one of the out-of-town guests.
I've been studying the sort of Steemit ecosystem, and I was actually going to make a presentation comparing it to Synereo. I ended up sort of pivoting to something else and at the conference. And I think one of the big differences is that Steemit, the blockchain, is the one that pays users for the content they create if it gets upvoted by other users, right? If it gets curated up. The people that want to advertise, like if somebody wants to reach your network of influence, they have to pay you directly to sort of get to those people. And the way that these are targeted is sort of kind of like network-based reputation. So it has two reputation tokens, Synereo, which is one of them is, well, it has two coins, right? AMP, which is a sort of asset that's really more like money, and then Rio, which is sort of like a reputation token that's more fluid, and you have to be engaged to spend it. It's a little bit more complicated, but basically it's kind of targeted to what people think you're good at or what people respect you for. So I don't know exactly how the dynamics of Rio work, but that's sort of where it's, I think, different. That it has a more sort of subjective reputation system, whereas in Steemit, if you're a whale, you can make anybody make $10,000 on a post, and it's going to be basically whatever whales like, right? It doesn't have that kind of fluidity, right? I'll give.
I mean, Steemit, like Reddit, has basically a shared news feed. I mean, any social media network has a feed. People look at it, and they can only see so much stuff, and one of them is going to be at the top and get more attention, and they all compete. In Facebook or Synereo, everyone has their own feed. Like you said, since they have a shared feed, they're all like sharing the right to decide the opinions and perspectives that will dominate the top of that feed. Whereas in Synereo, everything that shows up on your feed, like Facebook, is catered to you. But you get the idea. It's also in Steemit. I think he mentioned this. Come from newly generated coins, right? In the Synereo example, it's advertisers are paying, and that's the source rather than newly generated coins being the source.
Yeah, if you look at the Steemit chart right now, you'll see it's highly inflationary, and that's not really boding well for the price of it. Where so everyone can get paid, and like no one can really lose money. But yeah, at that point, like it's the same as on Reddit. Like an upvote, if an upvote was worth something, well, there's upvotes created every day, so they're eventually all going to go down in price. Yeah, highly inflationary. So with this AMP, I'm really curious now to know more about the reputation token and how that's generated. And because if I'm like, say I own a lot of AMP and 2 accounts, can I create reputation trading between them or doing attention between them?
How much do you know about Synereo?
I know that it's using something called a reputation system. At all, yeah, it's a reputation system.
Yeah, there is no token for reputation. It's a, and I wrote an article about this because their structure is interesting and how it decides who sees what. It's not based, it's kind of, Rio is based on reputation, but it's a relative concept. Everyone has a reputation relative to a person or to a group relative to a person. Or rather, Rio means reputation in a group comparatively to another person. Like, in order to make this an algorithm, it all has to be mathematically defined. That was the easiest way. So, but what this means is, like, now I like to use biological analogies a lot. If you, in their white paper, but they also use math a lot, and it's long. So, but they use a lot neurons as an example a lot, wherein the idea being if you talk to your friend a lot, he'll show up in your feed more, and you'll communicate more through the social network, kind of like how neurons atrophy if they're disused over time in connections to one another. So it's very natural in how it shows you the information you like. Yeah, does that make sense? That's a question.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so like, say Kim Kardashian comes on Synereo, it would cost a lot of money for someone to have her see a post. But if I'm just like a new guy to the platform,
and she has lots of drooling fans. People will just buy whatever she wears, right? And Synereo counts for that, and the value of her attention, right? Value of her attention is considered purely economically and reaching other people's attention. You see what I mean? And that's how Facebook works.
Except she would make a lot of money from people trying to get her reputation to validate attention on their stuff, like, or
well, her reputation would just increase the amount of amps she will get for sharing your post. If her reputation is higher, then sharing your post, the shared sponsored post, is more rewarding for her. And it goes by community. Her reputation can be great in the pop culture community, not so great in the crypto community, right? So you're targeting an ad to the crypto community. It'll account for things like that. Rio is relative to an audience, but yeah, all the time it has a value.
Okay.
But yeah, that's basically the point. That's how it's objectively tokenized the value of your attention. They're not all equally valuable. And it looks at how much of us look at her to decide mathematically how valuable her attention is.
Okay. So you could see a marketplace for accounts someday in the future, like someone has a lot of reputation relative to a large audience, while their account or their key would be worth a fair bit.
Yeah. You'd want to do that sale privately, because if it was discovered he'd sold it, it would lose its Rio very quickly. But yeah, that's true. Things like that will happen. Little marketplaces. And it's all pseudonymous, of course. So there's things there. If you want an account in a country where such and such activity you're advocating for or volunteering for is frowned upon. As Facebook has the thing now, I don't know if any of you have seen this. Some of my friends are into like Dagger here and roleplay stuff, and Facebook doesn't let you have a fake name. They can actually just straight up shut you down and say, sorry, use your real name, sir. And one of my friends is like, no, my name is Vors the Orc. Okay, like, shut up. Like, but they don't accept that. And but you know, other people have more pressing reasons for that. Like, I talk about free speech in China or gay rights in Russia or whatever, anywhere. USA, anti-cop advocate. Every country has some crowd that's going to need that, I think.
Well, yeah, I think it's interesting when you talk about like expanding beyond your circle, because that's the thing with like YouTube is like, if my content starts getting shared in Europe, then it becomes on like the pages in Europe, and like, yeah, it enables me to grow that much faster. That's why PewDiePie got really famous really quickly, because he was in Sweden, then he was in Italy, and then all of a sudden he was in the States, and so he's on all these different continents.
Yeah, it's pretty much how it works. I don't know. Does anyone here like questions? Go for it. Wait, sorry.
So the idea of decentralized reputation hits on one of the hard problems in cryptocurrency. problem that ever since I found out about cryptocurrency and started being interesting, that's been there. That it's a hard, if not impossible, problem to solve. Because as soon as you put your reputation on a decentralized network, the way to game that system is known, right? The only way to have a reputation system that can't be gamed is if you keep it secret. Centralized reputation system, people, coders, can look at how it works, no matter like how you're measuring reputation, how you're doing, like however you're doing it, they can look at that and game it. And like, I don't know how Synereo is approaching doing it, but I just think that like it will be flawed. Like it will be attackable.
Well,
What's your plan here? Are you going to attack Synereo?
Somebody will.
Um,
The idea of decentralized is like really a good idea in a large sense.
how would you attack someone? You mean to build your own positive fake reputation or destroy another person's? What would your attack method be? What would your attack method be? Well, you got to know if you're going to threaten us with it.
I'm saying however you choose to measure it.
speaking to the mic.
The only way to affect another person's reputation is with your own reputation. And so it's kind of risky, right? You have to build up a reputation for a while to have the ability to damage another person's, because only being reputed by reputable people can build your reputation. So as soon as you started so you could attack someone once, and exactly once, before all of your troll accounts, everyone saw that it's a zombie for attacking people, and your Rio will plummet. So it's kind of like a 51% attack, right? Works once, and then you have all this machinery for no reason. It's a very similar concept.
Well, I think what Taylor's thinking of for reputation might be analogous to like the credit system, where I could go to any random bank, they can look at my credit score, and they say, yes, you can get this much money. But the reputation system that it sounds like I'm hearing from Synereo is probably something that's similar within this room. Like Taylor could go to Jesse and say, hey, Jesse, can I borrow $10? Oh, I know you pretty well, Taylor. I know you'll pay me back. But Taylor can't go up to some guy in the street and say, can I borrow $10? Like that reputation isn't established there, right? So I think it kind of works in these pockets. I think that's my understanding of it.
Yeah, I mean, you can attack people's reputation, but you can only attack people's reputation with your own finite reputation. It's which is an interest, like it would just kind of like how on Bitcoin Talk, if you trolled too much with an account, like if you bought an account and trolled a bunch of people with it, eventually the rest of us are gonna be like, okay, it's a fucking mole account. I'm sorry, but you get the idea. The network account for that too. Greg, hey. You're gonna have to move. Greg's here. Sorry.
Awesome. Hi, Greg.
I've been giving them like a basic rundown layer. Okay, and I don't know how the technical layer works yet in its current form.
We're hung up a little bit on the reputation system right now, so maybe we'll kind of finish that off, and then we can talk about how the token is now and how the token is going to be hosted in the future.
Yeah, so we've been talking about the social layer. We're on reputation. Just haven't discussed our chain yet at all.
Okay, well, what do we want to talk about? I mean, tell me a little bit about the context. How deep do you want to go? And question right now. How real works? Is that better?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Here? Yeah. Hey.
Hey. We're up to 15 live viewers. So I guess, Greg, maybe just give us a quick introduction of yourself and kind of how you started the project, and then we can kind of carry on with our conversation maybe.
Yeah, sure. I mean, one way I introduce myself is kind of a poor, stupid mathematician who pays for, and musician who I pay for my mathing and musicking by working in computing. So I got kind of roped into this in a funny way. I was working on kind of the first generation of smart contracts, internet scale smart contracts. Mathematics that I utilize a lot, the process calculi. And I use that for Microsoft's BizTalk process orchestration. And that was kind of like the first internet scale. That spawned a whole bunch of W3C standards like WS choreography and Beppel and all those things. And that software like made 75 million in its first year. And it was used on a lot of large scale projects. And the idea was that you could describe smart contracts and then it could compile down to these expressions within the pi calculus that I had written. Microsoft didn't understand that it was decentralized, so they turned it into a kind of central hub, and then you had lots of hub and spoke architectures all over the place. And I actually spent several, well, I explained to them that they'd left most of the money on the table, and that it was really a decentralized platform. And but the way I said it was, you know, what's really going on here is the basis of a new operating system and a new programming language. And they said, you're crazy, but you might be the right kind of crazy. Here's an office directly under the CTO, go. I went and I'll try to keep the story as short as possible, but I went for it. And so what I was looking for was a market where Microsoft wasn't. And I got totally into bio. And so I was building out this infrastructure for bio. And oh, and by the way, I had, you know, let's see, I was engaged with Merck and Pfizer and the Institute for Systems Biology and Harvard Systems and the Trento Systems Biology labs in Trento, Italy. And I said, hey, Microsoft, we should go into biotech and utilize this technology as a spearhead. And they said, and I want my own P&L. And they said, no. And I said, well, you don't understand. I have all the relationships. And I walked out the door and got to do that. Long story short, having sat with a bunch of biologists, I built out a data transmission platform system for that was decentralized for bio. And then I was approached by an entrepreneur, Fred Fisher, who was concerned with, like I was, but I wasn't like actively working on it. He was concerned about the privacy imbalance and the economic imbalance. And talked to Fred, the more I realized that, in point of fact, that this was a serious issue, and that the platform that I was building for biotech could be built as a means of content distribution more generally than just pushing bio data around. So we started working on that, and then at a certain point, I realized, well, if this is going to work, it has to be fiscally sustainable, right? Because I was just looking at decentralized content distribution. And that's essentially what the Special K network is. So if you go to the Synereo repo, so Synereo is Synereo, which is the big mono repo. Now we've collapsed the 3 different repos into one. So if you go there, you'll see the Special K. So Special K was the core of the distributed content distribution network, decentralized content distribution network. And then I realized, well, it's got to be economically viable. How do we do that? So then Fred and I had been internally talking about the attention economy, but then I kind of kicked it up the next level. I said, oh, well, we could actually use this cryptocurrency as a mechanism, and that's when I met Dor, because he was publicly talking about the attention economy. And so, you know, it was like kind of the Reese's peanut butter cup thing, you know, hey, you've got chocolate all over my peanut butter kind of thing. And because Dor had built out a nice language and a nice brand. And we developed some really nice tech that had a mathematically sound basis and was tested at industrial scale for, you know, over a decade. So where Synereo began, and that's what we've been working on. Over the last 2 years, it's been this crazy ride, because initially I was thinking that we could put the blockchain stuff on the side. That we could kind of have the content distribution network call into the blockchain stuff. And the more we investigated that, first of all, we realized that proof of work was never going to scale. It just is not going to hit.
Sorry to interrupt, Greg. Could you hold the mic just a tad closer? Thanks.
Okay, sure. Sorry. So we realized that that blockchain was never going to scale to, you know, Facebook level transactions plus Visa level transactions, right? Isn't going to happen with proof of work. And that's when I bumped into Vlad Zamfir of Ethereum, and we started working on Casper, which is Vlad's approach to proof of stake. And at that point, you know, working with Vlad and Vitalik and those folks, and then kind of watching the rest of the market, I realized that Synereo was sort of late a certain way, because all the people who'd made serious progress, whether it was Ethereum or Steemit or whatever, they just said, screw it, we're just going to own the blockchain technology. You know, we're just going to, you know, make our own version of this that scales for us. And so that's how our chain was built. So that's a little bit of the narrative. Does that help set context for folks? Cool. By the way, I got to say, my eldest daughter is over here. She's going to be helping out with the conference. She's a genius artist. She and her partner have done some really amazing work. So check out the Royal Society. Well, whatever. You're still selling the tarot decks, right? Okay, so and Beth Quist was here for a while. She may join us. And oh, she went back up. Okay. Anyway, so if you're going to join the Synereo conference, you can see Beth. Beth is this amazing musician. It's like she has a 4-octave range. She's a child virtuoso on the piano. She toured with Bobby McFerrin's Voicestra. When Cirque du Soleil courted her and she went and joined them, they built a hammered dulcimer especially for her. Right? So she's like a musician in another world. She just joined us. Ed is a co-founder with me on Lively Gig, which is a kind of freelancer thing that sits on top of the Synereo platform. Okay, so I just wanted to, you know, introduce a few people I brought into the room here.
Awesome. Well, I'm jealous that I'm not able to be there in Vancouver there for the conference, but we got a bunch of live viewers here that are excited to hear more, I guess, about the project and where it is now. I think we were kind of just on the topic of reputation, and Taylor there on your right was saying that most reputation systems are easily gameable. So I guess, can you explain how reputation is your reputation system is not gameable in any way?
Oh, well, we do believe that there are lots of ways that you can game it, but what we're trying to do is to minimize those ways and then make it so that people are aware of the ways it can be gamed, and then make choices about their risk reward profile. We're not trying to be unrealistic about, you know, I mean, I don't want to say there's no magic here, because, you know, the magic is that we're all here together working on the decentralization movement, right? That's actual magic. But with respect to the tech, you know, we're trying to be as grounded in math as possible. So we've found lots and lots of attack vectors, and we're constantly trying to find more. And we hope that everyone here would, you know, join us in the game trying to find attack vectors for the reputation system. Because if we want this platform to work, then we all have to work together and pound on it and say, oh, this is screwy. Oh, but that's a good idea. That's kind of our approach. So with respect to the core idea, the Rio score is kind of a relative standing in your community, right? And it's a way of it's a way of measuring engagement over time in a common community, and common community is crucial for reducing the possibility of Sybil attack. So let's say we have Abed and Troy, right? And what we want to do is we want to measure the relative standing of Abed and Troy in their common community. So what we do is we look at how often friends of Abed, like Pierce and Shirley, and engage Abed's posts or content versus how often they engage Troy's posts or content. That's the measure. And now, so you think about it, Abed may have a giant botnet behind Abed, but the likelihood that Troy is also friends with Abed's bots, or a significant portion of Abed's bots, especially since they're bots, is vanishingly small. And you can make that as small as you want by you know, kind of tweaking the formula a little bit. And part of that has to do with like how responsive the bots are. But also, what we can get into this a little bit more, like if it turns out that people are building really, really amazing bots that, you know, look like people and talk like people and act like people and essentially are passing the Turing test, then do we want to exclude those kinds of agents? You know. Exactly. I mean, if they're contributing members of the community at that point, you know, it's like maybe we say, yeah, cool. You're in. You made the grade. So anyway, so that's so the common community and relative standing is what we look at. We also attenuate it. We attenuate the measure over time, right? So as you're accruing Rio and the engagement has to keep increasing for more engagement to mean more things. So it's very biological in that sense, right? So, you know, biological systems are they become inured to, you know, standard gradients. They get kind of bored of that. They're only looking at deltas. There's got to be a real shift before they respond again. All right, so they level set. So and we've kind of got the core attention economy, the Rio scores tweaked in that way. We also have Breezy looking at better versions of this. So she has a really interesting idea about paths between friends that avoid other friends. And that I've been able to game that fairly significantly, but we have some ways to patch it. That's another that's another approach to trying to find a simpler form than the form that we found. That, you know, answers your question a little bit. Yeah, please.
So the story of blockchain is really the story of managing externalities. So when we use Bitcoin, like we need to pay a fee to the network, and the network is constantly creating Bitcoin. And there's a lot of externalities. I would say there's even more externalities to the social network because there's much more data that's stored on this network. I assume you can put pictures on it, posts as well. So where is this data getting stored, and why are the people storing this data storing it? What's the incentive to people to support this network?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I tend to agree with your. Originally, as I said, we had a side-by-side architecture, so the data was stored in the content delivery network on the blockchain, and we have a different approach to security in the content delivery network that has to do with it's essentially a security by obscurity kind of thing. So so if you think about the address space on the blockchain or on the Ethereum blockchain, the addresses are fixed in size. Our addresses are not fixed in size. They're more like URLs, which can grow. And they can grow in other ways as well. So they can grow in computational complexity. So it becomes harder and harder to guess where content lives in this network. And I'll be honest, we've had all kinds of issues trying to make sure that that scale and is secure. So users in the network shreds the data and it swims around the network. So any node that's participating in the network is a part of the network. No, they're holding little pieces of the data. That's a really good question. So when we first built Special K, I wasn't thinking about this application at all, and I was thinking that of replication and fault tolerance in terms of data availability as an application level protocol. Since then, proof of stake, I realized that I could use that as a data. Essentially, proof of stake becomes a data availability protocol. So you have a bunch of validators, and they're all participating. And because they're participating, the state of the network is the same. It's guaranteed to be the same amongst all the nodes within a particular shard. So you have data availability guarantees. There are several caveats and complications. So in that architecture, which is our 2.0 architecture, not the 1.0 architecture, Synereo is storing the data on the blockchain, not side by side.
To be an incentive to the nodes to use their hard drive space, to use their electricity.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's so. Yeah. So by participating in the protocol for the storage layer, there's an economics. There's a whole set of transaction fees that are associated with exactly that. So validators get transaction fees. Those nodes which are providing storage get transaction fees. So those people who access the data and those people who rely upon transactions that utilize the data are paying transaction fees. If you promote content using AMPs, then you are paying, right? Exactly right. So, does that answer your question?
We should get the questions on the screen.
Where am I taking?
Yeah, we do have another one.
You can just repeat the question even too if that works.
Come here.
Was there a question outstanding still? Okay.
We'll get. Sorry, the order's lost.
So, hi, I'm really happy to meet you. So in terms of the actual data allocation, right, is I'm guessing that the larger the data set, the higher the cost of it, correct?
The higher the cost of what? Of storage?
Of the storage of the data.
Yeah, I mean, there's a correlation between volume and,
right.
And yeah, exactly.
And is this data stored or is it stored like permanently, like on Ethereum?
Oh yeah, so actually, Ethereum their goal is not permanent. You have to pay rent.
I see. Yeah.
Right? And our goal is the same.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is to make sure that, you know, the community that's, you know, utilizing the data,
mm-hmm.
you know, kind of has a sense of ownership,
mm-hmm.
right? So if there's a community out there that really loves child porn, they gotta pay rent, right?
Right.
And which then gives them a whole accountability thing.
And
And I'd be like, I just like this type of content, like child porn or whatever.
Yeah, so that's a really
It's encrypted to them.
That's a really interesting question. I was just about to say, in our approach, we don't see the content. We never see the content.
mm-hmm.
And servers don't see the whole picture either.
Right.
Like we see bits and pieces of it.
They don't know what it is.
They don't know what it is. Right.
So is the content distribution network similar to MaidSafe, or is this, as you said, that away from a separate content distribution network to merging between proof of stake and the distribution of the
So
data?
there are principles that are similar, but we use different algorithms.
I see.
Yeah.
So I understand that you already reiterate in terms of how different is between having a separate content distribution, right, and a merger of those two, where you have proof of stake and the content distribution. Like that's kind of, you would think those are two separate things. How did you bring those forth together?
Basically, I mean, initially I was just super pragmatic. I looked at the Bitcoin blockchain, I looked at proof of work, and I said, no way I'm storing video on this. No way I'm even storing pictures on this. So I can't make this be the storage layer.
Yeah.
I've already got a storage layer, so I'll just use this for the currency.
Yeah.
right? And that I was totally naive. It looked like a reasonable idea, and it was like necessity was driving me in that direction, right?
I would think so too, even at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah, and then we began to realize that there was no way we could do side by side that was secure, and we could do side by side that was performant, and there was so there was just all these holes. Essentially, you're always going to be in a situation where you're brokering to a network that you don't own.
I see.
And so people do. So the attacker attacks the broker, and that brings down the network, and now you're screwed.
But wouldn't be, for example, if we're using IPFS here, let's just for assumption's sakes, for your content distribution, it's just a hash, right? And then the availability of that data, is just as secure as long as the hash is not or pre-calculated to have some kind of same hash result, like
I mean, so the IPFS ideas are strong. I've spoken with Juan at length, and I like the idea of using the hash, but there's a lot more to this, and I think Juan knows this, and I think anyone who's studied this, the real issue is query. The real issue is locating the data and making sure that the query model lines up with the programming model in a coherent fashion, and that's important. Not just for performance, it's also important for proving that protocols that you write at that layer do. Okay, so there's more to it than just the idea that the hash points off to a different place. Because we've had the look aside idea for a long time. That was sort of a basic part of our content delivery network, and more recently, I did some work with, internally, we have a Jira database for our codes. And if you go look at our code, Ed, do we have the Jira queries public now?
I published them a couple months ago, but I need
to find it. So people can see the SOC 91 is where we address some of our core performance issues, and at that point I laid in the foundation so that we can use it exactly matches the IPFS approach for that piece of the puzzle. Okay, but again, our data location and query model is fundamentally different than IPFS. Sure.
And just one last question. In terms of state channels, right? Is there any?
Yeah, I can't speak to that, but I mean, I can give pointers to folks who can. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was just curious in terms of how does that relate to your R chain, or does proof of stake basically replace that, or is there any use case that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't need. I mean, you can build state channels above that layer.
Yeah.
Right, but I don't think we need them at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah.
Thanks. So my name is Paul, and I'm really into this, into alternative social networks ever since joining like around 5 years ago or so. And that was like a bit of I think one of those like decentralized networks that kind of came up. And I'm really curious. So I don't know much about the backend of the programming or all these kinds of like more technical details, but I'm really interested in the UX, UI, like how it integrates with people.
Yeah.
How do you guys differ, or how are you similar to things like Diaspora or Friendica is another one, or yours or Dat? Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So actually, you can see a lot of this, a lot of the principles that are underlying the organization of the UI. I laid out both in terms of the original UI, but then also in terms of a series of 5 and talks that I gave. Are you familiar with the reactive programming model?
No.
Okay, so the reactive programming model is the reactive programming model is taking the big data world by storm, and it's a really simple idea. It says that channels and filters on those channels, and essentially programs pull off of those channels in a certain way, right? but there's a kind of there's an algebra of channels. Now what I mean by that is that you can combine channels in a certain way.
Right, to make a feed, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can
Awesome, yeah.
yes, you can combine feeds out of feeds.
Sure. Yeah.
Right, and then you can add filters. Right, so that's the model that we're utilizing, and it's like a and what we're hoping is that this becomes a ubiquitous model. I don't want to say API language for how to build these kinds of applications, and we're testing this out internally in Synereo. We're very application focused and very application driven. So we don't just have a social network application organized along these principles, but we also have a freelancer network organized along these principles, so that when you post in the social network, that can be information that's utilized over in freelancer feeds. And when you post in the freelancer feeds, that can be information that's utilized over in the social feeds.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. That's one of the problems I find. Like I was reading an article it was an Iranian blogger who was released from jail recently after blogging in Iran, and father in Iran. He was like a big figure. There's a cool
That's
article
friggin'
about
awesome.
him. Yeah, and they put him in jail because he was writing some anti-government stuff. Yeah, I'm not sure if that would help in Iran at the time. I don't know. I'm not sure, but he wrote an article recently and he was talking about this kind of stuff. And one thing he wrote is that he was saying like one of the big problems was beforehand, like you had like an article basically, and like you wrote about whatever, people would write comments, and it was kind of interesting that way. But now you just have the stream that never ends, right? And you get people like on the bus all the time. You see people like flicking. My background's in healthcare, and one of the things we see a lot at the clinic is we call it texter's thumb. And it's literally a thing that we treat now, or texter's neck. But anyway, but the point of this is that it's content coming out of nowhere. You can't really filter it very well, and it's all on Facebook especially. They make money. Diaspora, as far as I can tell, is random, more or less. And I was thinking a cool model would be to have almost like tiles per se on the screen. You could maybe click on tiles, or you could see like little notifications saying like if you follow BBC, for example, or you follow Andrew or something, right? Like whatever. For me, that might be equally important. Yeah. And then I could say like BBC put like 2 articles or something up, it would pop up right away, see what it is. Tiles as opposed to, more Andrew, right? But as opposed to like a stream. So I'm curious, like how do you guys perspective, or you
we do have exactly this idea. Oh, cool. But even we go one step further. Okay, if you look at the original Splicious UI, and if you look at the designs for the evolution of the next generation of the Synereo UI, feeds, which are combinations of channels and filters, are first-class entities. So I can give you, like, let's say I design a feed for day trading. So maybe I'm watching the Bitcoin blockchain transactions. I'm watching the Ethereum blockchain transactions. I'm watching Reuters, and I'm watching something like that. And and then I'm making some money with this. Maybe I share it with my buddies. I share my feed.
Oh, that's awesome.
With my buddies,
yeah.
Right? And then they go, oh, you know what? This would be much better if we
with this edition,
or if I crank this
wicked,
filter in this way. And the other thing is that the filters, they serve 2 functions, right? You can tag data, and you can filter data for those functions that have those tags. Okay. Right. Now our hashtags are a little different because they have structure. They're not just flat. So you can have a hashtag that's built out of a tree of hashtags. So those hashtags are then utilized to
build the stream,
to filter the stream, exactly. Yeah. But now since the only way you can find stuff that I've the data,
you have to tell me.
I have to tell you in some way. Or the way I tell you is sharing tags that'll get you to data that is. So there's this whole other sort of meme-like economy where people are trading tags as the meme token.
Okay.
Right. So so I make up a tag data with that tag, and then I share the tag. And not like the hashtag of today, which is fire and forget. For a hashtag, and then it goes out of attention, 5 seconds later. Is persistent tags that have utility because they're a way to navigate and relevant and important to you.
Okay, but what if, like, say I'm a journalist now or something, I want to get my event out, what I'm doing out, I want to make it public. I don't want to everybody. Is there like a channel for that, like a public channel?
So we have a notion of venue. So there is in our system, there's no such thing as public,
Ever.
because there isn't any such thing as public, right? The Facebook network,
Yeah,
Facebook's notion of public is not public to you.
yeah,
It's just like if I post, if I go crying in Red Square in Moscow,
yeah.
it may look like it's public, but in point of fact, if I'm in Alaska, I can't hear that.
Sure.
There is no notion of actual public.
Well, I mean, so like Diaspora does it like in an interesting way. If you go into like my account, for example, on Diaspora, you can see the things that I've marked as public, and you can just like, if once you find my account, right?
Yeah.
And you can see everything. So there is that. Like, does that also show
So
up
we
with
can
you guys?
easily
You set that up.
emulate that,
Okay.
right? So there are two ways. One is you can tag stuff with a public. You can literally just
Right,
make
tag
a
it as
public
public.
tag,
Okay.
and you share that with whoever you want to share it with. The
Okay.
other thing is we have a notion of a venue protocol, which is a channel to which you are reposting, right?
Okay,
And
I see.
other people are by contract reposting too, right? And then whoever has entree to that venue, that
Mhm.
channel,
all
that
the
stuff,
public things.
right? So
Okay.
so our venue is a notion of scoped public.
Okay. I have a few more questions, but I'll just finish on this one for now. And it's just, how do I get an account? Like, do I? Because again, I can't really put it on my own server, or whatever. Is
Yeah,
there a
yeah.
chance I could
Come,
get?
come to the conference and you'll get a technical preview.
Oh, preview,
Right,
okay.
but the bits are still rough around the edges. We're
That's fine.
still,
That's fine.
yeah. We'll be showing a technical preview. You can,
Okay.
yeah. You can. Well, first of all, this is
Same time as I get
like
one.
people. Yeah, I think people. I've been trying to say this, and I'll just keep saying it and keep saying it. Look, open source, all the bill. It's like there's no such thing as a drop, right? Right.
Yeah.
The only thing we're gonna do is we're gonna bless the bits. We're gonna wave our hands over them and say, here are the caveats that we know about, right? Right. And we've all agreed internally that we're not gonna do the sign of the cross over the bits until the end of September. Technical preview to during the conference for those people who want some hand holding to play with the bits, and then we'll show you what you can do with them right now.
So I could go do it, but you're not actively facilitating it quite yet.
No, we're not going to actively facilitate help until the end of September.
All right.
Yeah.
But there is an option of having like an account on someone else's server. As
Oh,
opposed to
absolutely. Yeah.
making
For
it
sure.
myself.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll have more questions after.
Wait, did you get all that, Stirk?
Yeah, no, it's coming through great. If there aren't other questions in the space
Your
there,
online questions or your questions?
well, we're chatting away in the YouTube chat here, but nothing really of substance. I don't mean to bash those guys, but I was curious to know. Okay, so right now you have all the tokens, but the same chain that Casper is going to be running, it's not what amps are on right now. Like, can you explain what the network is now and what it is going to be at the end of September? And like, yeah.
Yeah. So amps right now are an omni asset against the Bitcoin blockchain,
Cool.
which is cool. Yeah, but it's like so 2015, right?
Right.
When we go live with our chain, there will be a conversion, and it'll be timed, right? So the people who jump over with their amps on the Bitcoin blockchain and convert to the amps on the R chain, the sooner you do it, the better the deal you get, right? And it's because you're taking on more risk. And we're hoping that the conversion happens kind of Q2 and Q3 of 2017, if I've got that right. Yeah.
Okay, and so you guys are also doing a second ICO, and is that for the remainder of the amps that you have on Omni, or is there going to be future ICOs to kind of disperse this more? And where did the price?
No, it's not for the remainder. I mean, there's some that will be held back for and again, it's not just for ICO. It's like one of the things that I've been trying to do is find other ways. I mean, our goal is to get as many amps into the hands of the community as possible, and what we're trying to do is to make sure that the community has this isn't just like weird speculation, right? not there just to to be tokens for crazy ass schemes to get rich. The amps are there to facilitate a disciplined growth of the social network. And the weird thing is that people don't get is that this is your network. It belongs to you. If you want it to do better, get in there and help us with the code or with the marketing or whatever it is that you're good at. Get in there and help us do it. Right? This is, we're all in this together.
But
There's no us and them.
Can I change the world and get filthy rich?
You're welcome to do that, and more power to you if you can.
Yeah.
But the amps are there, and so what we're trying to do is to find other ways to get amps into the hands of people who have a shared view of what it is that this is about. About is the planet is freaking melting, right? I mean, there are lakes forming in the Antarctic ice sheets right now. Like, people should be really friggin' right. And so part of this is just making sure we have alternative systems for communication and self-organization. Right? That's what we need. We need mechanisms by which we can organize ourselves much more efficiently, right? And get to solving some of the real problems, not like, where do I sell my amps, right? Those are the real problems, and all of this is just facilitating building that infrastructure so that we can get to those issues. And the hope is that by giving amps to certain projects in certain ways, that we accelerate that process. So
are you talking about the fund for dApps now?
So I'm talking about multiple things. So one is Project 11. And yeah, so I just want to be like super transparent about this. Project 11 is a social hack to hack people to understand how to organize themselves, right? So the way Project 11 works is there are curators and there are people who are actively developing stuff. And there are two kinds of things you can develop. You can develop code, or you can develop the scenario narrative, like telling the scenario story, like what scenario is and how it works, right? So like, to all the bards and the dancers and the sculptors and the puppeteers, who want to get into this game and tell the scenario story, if they get enough people, and especially if they get enough curators behind their project, then Project 11 amps will magically appear, and their project will be funded with amps.
So that's like for incentivizing dApp production on the platform.
Yeah, but that's not just dApps, right? That's literally just telling the story, because there are a lot of people out there who are kind of confused about what Synereo is and what it does and what our aims are and what our goals are. So if someone wants to do an interpretive dance, explain through which the enlightened can become even more enlightened, right? And understand how Synereo works. Oh, do we lose somebody?
Oh, no, I'm still here.
Alex, why did you disappear visually?
Sorry, my quality just jumps around. Am I back?
Okay, no worries. No, that's Project 11. There's two parts of Project. So there's the scenario narrative part of Project 11, and then the other part of Project 11 is helping with the development of Synereo. So for example, we've got open SOCs open bugs against the code base. So and then there will be bounties associated with them. So if you want to just wade in and quash some bugs, you can earn some bounties, and those are Project 11 bounties. But maybe you want to do a little bit more than that. Maybe you want to dive in and develop a feature. Right, features that we've thought are important, but we don't have the human capacity to do it. So maybe that's something for you. Or maybe you see a feature that we haven't seen, like bright-eyed and clear-headed and clear thinking, and you've got the will to get stuff done, and you come to us, and all that it takes is that there are enough curators and enough people glomming around this. So this is like a DAO with your feet, right? Right? There are enough people glomming on your proposal, then Project 11 amps will magically appear. the way that we're, trying to get amps out of this ridiculous treasury hoard and into the hands of people, so people are empowered to do stuff. And then the other thing is, like, for example, this year we're sponsoring Ethereum DevCon to the tune of $15,000 worth of amps. And again, the reason we're doing this is because people keep coming up to me and say, oh, our chain is really going to compete with the Ethereum blockchain. And I'm like, first of all, Vitalik and Vlad and I, we work on a weekly basis. Kristen is there at 7 a.m.
Do you drink together? And
we're all Spectrum kids, right? What do friends mean?
That's good.
No, but I mean, I guess the point is that I think there's a strongly shared ethic that we want the best solutions, and however we get to those best solutions, it's not about competition, it's about cooperation. Cooperate is because we have literally burning issues that we have to address, right? So that's what we're doing with respect to the amps. We're trying, we're not doing all of them for the ICO. We're leaving some of them so that we can fund these cool things.
Just another question, I guess, quickly, about the second ICO. Where did you guys find the price for it? And yeah, that's about it.
He's got lots of traders in his chat.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So first of all, I'm going to say that Dor is much more on top of this, and I wish you were here, but Dor has been. But I just mean I wish you were here at this interview. Right. Anyway, so Dor has been much more on top of this, and I think he could speak to that more articulately. Dor and I consult on these things all the time, but I'd rather. Yeah. Well, no, it's not that I just build it, but I'd rather him speak to that issue. So.
All right. Yeah.
Go bug Dor on Slack. Seriously, go bug Dor on Slack and ask him to tell you.
Okay.
Skirky,
No further
can
questions.
I jump for a sec?
Yeah, go for it, Chelsea.
I just, in terms of, you were talking about cooperation, and if I remember correctly, Synereo is going to be a caretaker node for the IPDB. Is that correct? Yeah. So do you see kind of a similar vision? And we're also going to be working with them. And it's just everything I hear about Synereo kind of has a similar vision for this distribution moving into empowering people. So I'm just curious, do you kind of see that as they can spread your message and you can spread theirs?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, like, I am so impressed by the Ascribe people. They're, Greg Mullen and Trent, they are just really switched on, and they're really thinking hard about this. I mean, let's get real. Synereo has a giant provenance problem, right? In order for the attention economy to actually work, you've got to be able to say where the content came from. And how many world-changing innovations can one tiny little team of do, right? It's like we can't do it all. So I'm hoping that Ascribe and a whole bunch of other people working on the provenance part of this come up with great solutions that we can then incorporate in Synereo. That would be really awesome, right? And that's part of the reason why we're engaged with them. We hope to be able to plug in a provenance solution very soon.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Greg was here last Monday, actually.
Sweet.
He gave a little presentation.
Just a quick one. So this is again like a non-technical kind of question, but I see like I was on this with Project 11. I saw it's about $200,000 worth of. And I had this problem when I'm talking to people about Bitcoin and about like anything like Ethereum or things like this. When you say like, oh, there's like or estimate it, like someone's getting $1,000, $10,000 for a post. Where does that money come from? Not really. What would you say if someone says like, hey, you've got like $200,000 of amps? Where does that money come from?
I love what Primavera Philippi says, magic internet money. I mean,
that doesn't help, right? That sounds like a scam or like that
guy
from Nigeria selling stuff on
wait. So like, what's the difference between that and fiat currency? Currency have any value?
Yeah, but I understand. Yeah, that makes sense. At the same time, like fiat money means something to everybody, right? And so most people don't understand like where fiat money, how does it transfer over to apps? You know?
Right. Well, I mean, right now, the only way it transfers over to amps is because at this point, people are willing to trade fiat currency for amps. I mean, that's literally it,
value.
right?
Okay.
Until such time as amps unlock features in Synereo, right? Well, namely, being able to promote posts.
Right. Then it's worth more, right?
Then
not
it's
just
worth
fiat,
more.
right?
Exactly.
It's like based on something.
Correct.
Yeah, like Bitcoin. So it's like fiat waiting to become a coupon, almost. Yeah, crypto. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing though that needs to be clear is that at a crucial point, amps don't just unlock post capability or promotion capability, right? They also unlock the use of social contracts, which are Synereo smart contracts. And I again, I want to say to all your viewers, like a lot, like even internally, you know, my team beats me up using social contract versus smart contract. And the reason, there's multiple reasons I'm doing that.
Social sounds more specific. Specialized.
Yeah. Well, I guess I do it for philosophical reasons. First of all, smart contracts was kind of co-opted by Ethereum in a very in a very specific way that has kind of it doesn't harken back to some of the roots of smart contracts. But the second reason, which is more compelling to me, is that for us, smarts is social. And down to the actual software and the actual mathematical model. So our contracts are inherently made up of other contracts in the way that societies are made up of subgroups, which are made up of families, which are made up of individuals, right? So our contract and our contracts fine-grained concurrency. So inside one contract, you can have multiple contracts concurrently executing at a time. Thing that you can do with Solidity today, and nor is planned, nor did they believe in that kind of model. But from my point of view, having worked in the concurrency space for about since 1987, how long is that? Anyway, for a long time, I think that that's the only way we're actually going to be able to scale. So our contracts are literally social. The fact that our contracts socialize, and so. On our chain will unlock contract functionality. Cool. All right.
I have just 2 questions. So in terms of the concurrency model, is this similar to the CSP system, like Lahore's, like Golang uses, like the state, like channel passing?
So there's okay. So let's get super clear, right? CSP is not channel passing.
I see.
Okay. CSP has a fixed communication topology.
Mm-hmm.
So back in the late 70s, early 80s, when Tony Hoare and Robin Milner were working on these kinds of ideas along with others,
mm-hmm.
They were largely thinking about the concurrency on a motherboard that had a fixed wiring, and you had processors
mm-hmm.
with fixed communication routes. Then Robin came along and was watching the cellular networks and looking at other kinds of concurrency phenomena and said, oh, wow, the communication topology has to change. So then he came up with the pi calculus, which is actually channel passing. And so our model is a revisioning calculus. So the one thing that Robin always avoided
mm-hmm.
was that channels had any internal structure. So for him, channels are like, addresses, hashes. But for us, the internal structure. And in fact, the only way to make the pi calculus do what Robin really wanted it to do
mm-hmm.
is if channels have internal structure. And we go one better than that, which is that the channel, in the pure form of the model, the channels have internal structure, which is the codes of the contracts that they're operating inside. So it's reflective. which means I can pass a contract to you as a part of a communication act.
I see.
Right. And so what you receive is the code, and then you can instantiate that code and run that, and that has channels inside it, which is the code of other contracts, et cetera, et cetera.
Interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Cool.
In terms of second question, currently right now there's kind of this, and I've been doing my own workshops on Ethereum, and there's been Solidity, and in terms of Ethereum, there's been this downturn of moving away from Solidity that I see into moving towards a cross compilation target. There's currently with the as discussed a year ago, they're working on leveraging the WebAssembly format into Ethereum WebAssembly, right? Through this transcompilation. And considering that Synereo is thinking like you're developing on terms of Rolang, and like, are there any directions as well, like synergetic directions in terms of also moving towards the WebAssembly format? Or is there any what are your thoughts, or simply moving the same way as Ethereum into not focusing on having a unique programming language, but providing a
so we're providing both, right? We're providing a clear, well-spec'd VM, correct by construction.
I see.
Okay, and that VM and that VM has a formally verified compilation path to LLVM. And if WebAssembly gets mature enough that we deem that it's reasonable for that to be a target, hey. And if someone else decides, again, this is completely decentralized,
right?
And the code is open source and the repos are public. So if someone else says, you know what, WebAssembly is the way to go, I'm just going to build a damn compiler. Go for it. and hey, not only if you go for it, like maybe there's Project 11 that we toss your way. So yes, that we're absolutely intending for that to happen. And we fully expect that other what I call surface languages, which is the language that human beings who write programs or contracts make contact with, rather than the VM.
Right.
So we fully expect there will be 100. If we're succeeding, people are coming out with new all the time.
I see.
Right. Go ahead.
And it's just that in terms of like Rolang and like, what do you are your prerogatives are focusing on Rolang or focusing on the cross compilation? I'm just curious. So considering the learned.
So that's a really important model. So a really important question. And I actually have documentation on this and the design rationale. So we begin from a foundational model that we know matches the domain. So we have strong evidence that the row calculus matches all the requirements of the domain. After several years of investigating a specific domain, right? So from there, from the calculus, you can design a virtual machine that is correct by construction. So there's no need to verify the compiler. Well, for example, so let me compare this with Ethereum's design, right? So Solidity was designed independently of the Ethereum virtual machine. The EVM was a that came out of Gavin's head, right? And then Solidity was designed independently, and so they have, in order to have any sort of correctness guarantees, of their, which is important, right? The DAO bug is not the only issue here. There are all kinds of security issues here. So they pick up a proof obligation that compiler gives you good bytecode, which they have not done. Okay, so in a correct by construction, what we're doing, I have no such proof obligation because the virtual machine derives immediately and directly from the computational model. Likewise, the surface language derives immediately and directly from the computational model. And so then when I compose the two correct maps, one from the computational model to the VM, and pre-compose that with the surface language to the computational model, guess what? I have a correct compilation path.
I see.
Right? So this is our core design principles. Correct by construction. The only piece where we can't be correct by construction is because this was designed by legacy, is the compilation path from our VM to LLVM. Or we did. It has its own computational model.
Right.
And but everyone, to all your it turns out there's a formally correct passage from row calculus to a form of lambda calculus that's close enough to OCaml. From the OCaml model to LLVM already exists and has been formally verified.
Oh, cool.
So I get to verified maps all the way down the chain, and guess what? It's correct, and I don't have to do a lot of work. Right? I'm trying to minimize the amount of work to get formally verified code.
Yeah. Wow, that's impressive. Yeah, thank you. Sure.
I knew you'd love him, Jake. He's a smart guy.
Yes, but
There's times when lazy's smart. Just build a better process that automates it, you know?
Yeah, there's that book, it's cool, right? Like, he hires only lazy people for hard jobs. Find efficient ways of doing it.
All right, just to recap, you know, your conference is going to start soonish.
yeah.
How did you get here?
How did I get?
Drive or transit?
Oh, I drove.
Oh, okay. So it's like 5 minutes to the conference venue.
Perfect. Yeah. So we should probably like book it. Yeah. There's also.
All right. So we're going to do any final questions from people who have not asked questions yet, who have final questions. Anybody? All right. You're good.
So, I mean, I don't know if this question is out of the scope of the time we have. You didn't really get into our chain very much, as far as it.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, and maybe this is a question for Dora, but I'll put it out there anyways. How does our chain deal with the double spend problem? It seems like it's a new sort of structure that looks like a blockchain, but it's got it's a little bit different, right? So curious how that works.
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, ultimately, this is what the consensus algorithm is for. The proof algorithm is really tackling, amongst other things, right? So you're trying to make sure that everyone has the same view of the state. So it's more general than just double spend, right? And so if you look at the way Casper works, answer your question and a bunch of other questions too. Yeah. Any other burning questions?
I suppose at this point
this is a lot of fun. I always have. Oh, what? Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, there's a massive lag from my damn internet. I need a mesh net really bad. But no, I thank you for coming out and talking with us today. I know all of our 25 live viewers were most appreciative, and yeah, I'm really jealous that I can't come to the conference. So anyone watching at home, I would go, but you guys got to help fund me to get a telepresence robot, and then I can drive down the street and go to.
It will be live streamed. So.
Oh, awesome. Then I'll see if I can get that link from Andrew, and then yeah, I'll make sure to share it out for you. But yeah, thanks again.
Sweet. Thank you. Great chatting. Thank you.
All right, and everyone at home, thank you for tuning in, and I'll end the broadcast here. So we'll see you in the next 1,000 blocks.
So.